Jane.
John.
Shane.
Chad.
These sci-fi guys.
Welcome to these sci-fi guys. I don't need to say who I am and who all of us are because they say it in the intro. I was just realizing it when I was just listening to that. I was like, oh, each time it says Dave, Shane, Chad, John, so why do I need to say it again?
Well, good
Anyway.
evening, y'all. Hey, y'all.
What's
Hey,
up, everybody?
y'all.
Hello, everyone.
All right,
Yeah,
all right,
so
all right.
we are- okay, Matthew McConaughey.
McConaughey.
Yeah, we're not doing a Matthew McConaughey movie. That was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, a couple weeks ago when we did Contact. So,
True.
True.
so this week we are doing E.T., the Extra Terrestrial.
Ooh.
And Chad, no, it does not sound like Pee Wee Herman. So at all. Nope, not gonna happen.
Oh, shucks. I didn't get you onto it.
Not at all. So, if anything, I think it does still sound like Yoda, slightly. So,
Kind of,
No.
sort of.
It's close. I'm not going to give it the same, but it's close.
Did
Okay,
you know?
hold on.
Did you know?
Let's listen.
Phone home.
Okay, and now.
Or do not. There is no try.
Nah.
I'll give you E.T. as a young Yoda.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
There you go.
That's what I was thinking.
Did you know that E.T. their race was in the Galactic Senate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, because just a sneak peek out there for all you guys out there in YouTube land and audio land and all that are listening to this and watching this. We do have a very special show coming up here in a few weeks that we're going to what's the word I should use? Oh yeah, fix the franchise.
Right.
We're gonna fix the prequels of Star Wars. So
Yep.
and I just watched episode 1 like yesterday. So I did notice that when I was like, oh, hey, there's ET. But yeah, the Spielberg and George Lucas were really good friends.
Oh yeah.
So, and with that, let's go behind the scenes. All right, everyone. Well, let me first talk about this movie. Let's talk about Spielberg first. Steven Spielberg. He basically he didn't write this movie, but he was very heavily involved in it.
For sure.
The concept of it was that when he was younger, he had an imaginary friend. And Spielberg created it after his parents divorced. So a lot of what you'll see in this movie, you notice that the parents are separated. You'll notice they kept thinking, oh, he has an imaginary friend or what have you,
The Goblin's back.
Yeah, the goblin. But so that's kind of the where they got the idea for it. All right. The concept for ET, let me go back one. It was much darker, like this, black screen. I wanted that to say that. It was really supposed to be a very dark movie originally. All right. It was off of Spielberg began to think about this after his 1977 movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which we saw. He enlisted a writer / director, John Sayles, to pen a screenplay called Night Skies. Okay, in which a farm community was terrorized by alien invaders. As the Guardian, it says, the tone of Night Skies was set for horror and violence. Fortunately, the director had a change of heart. So, otherwise, E.T. would have been, I don't know, something a little bit.
I'll be back.
Kind of long. maybe along that line or something different, but I don't know. I just got a kick out of it. Well, Reese's
Well,
Pieces. Oh, go ahead.
I thought it was it was not even it was the Reese's Pieces. I thought it was like Skittles at first when I first
It was
watched it
Reese's
years ago.
Pieces. And the reason it was Reese's Pieces is because they wanted M&Ms that you see on the screen. I actually found this as a picture of the original ones back from the 1982 time frame where it said plain and big. They wanted M&Ms, but M&Ms was like, nah, we're good. We're making enough money. We don't need to have your movie as a to do this. Well, Reese's Pieces was nothing until the movie, and then all of a sudden, it just blew up. Yeah. Okay. Drew Barrymore was in this movie. Little Drew.
I had done forgot about that.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore, when she was a young child, she actually thought E.T. was a real alien.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, she genuinely, actually, especially like at the end when he perishes, that you notice her reaction was totally real. She thought E.T. died. She really did, and that's why she was so upset.
Traumatized for life.
Yeah. And one
definitely.
thing they did in this movie that they don't typically do is they filmed this chronologically. They filmed so that way all the kids would have the same, especially like Drew here, for example. So that way they would have an authentic reaction for the child actors.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Hadn't thought
Yeah,
about that.
it was so like the goodbye scene at the end of the film, which of course was filmed last. So they wanted to see their emotions and everything at the end of it. So because that was the last thing filmed, it really turned out that way. All right. The original ending was much different. The last scene was them supposed to be here playing Dungeons and Dragons, except for this time, Elliot was the Dragon Master because he's the one that found ET, and that got him in with the group. And then they would pan up to the roof, and you would see the communicator, and it would still be working. So, in other words, he had contact with ET. But after they did the score, Shane, you'll love this.
Okay.
After they did the score and saw what they had when the spaceship taking off and everything, they said, "How can you follow that? It's perfect. Let's not mess with it."
I would agree. Good call.
Yeah. So Shane, why don't you wanted to tell us about the score in John Williams?
I would love to. So, so basically this is done by the living legend, John Williams. All right. Has done so many movies we can't even count. One of the biggest ones being Star Wars, of course, the music for that. But also this is one of many times that he collaborated with Steven Spielberg on movies, and of course they have been great successes. The thing with this movie is that it is still to this day considered one of his best excuse me, one of his best movie film scores. It's one of the best received, and actually just one of the best acclaimed ones that he's had. Some of the themes that it really hits on are themes of friendship and wonder, and just the connection between both E.T. and Elliot. One of the things that you'll notice is the main theme that they have when they're flying in the bikes. When you listen to the movie, as the movie gets to that point, you start hearing little bits of that theme build and build. And the first time that E.T. takes off, then you hear the theme in its entirety. So it builds throughout the entire movie, and it's just very well done. And of course, that's one of the iconic things of this film. It was recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra, which is one of John Williams' main groups that he uses a lot in a lot of his movies. Star Wars being one of them. As far as some of the awards that this score got, it received an Academy Award for Best Original Score. It also had a Golden Globe, and it also had a Grammy for best score soundtrack for visual media. And of course, like I said, is still considered to be one of the best original scores that John Williams has wrote in his entire career. And he is 93 now. He just turned that and is still writing music. So yeah.
Wow. I had no idea that he wrote that many. Wow.
I
Oh,
did.
yeah. Yep. 93 years old and still going strong.
Jeez. I hope as much.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Well, let me get back to a couple things here. So, all right, E.T. was 3 actors. Those of you that are in audio, you need to go to YouTube. I got a picture of the 3 actors that are actually there with E.T. You'll notice the young boy on the skateboard. He actually was the first. He was 12 years old. He was born without legs. Spielberg found him through the UCLA Medical Center. All right. His suit was rigged so he could place his hands into E.T.'s feet and use them to walk. So, like, for example, he's the one that's operating the suit for E.T.'s intoxicated scene in the kitchen when he falls on his face. Eventually, it was just too taxing for him. So that's why they brought in the other 2 little people to bring in to complete the additional scenes, But it did say the actors were often cooled off with blow dryers between scenes just because that suit was so hot. I mean, because there's no, I mean, you can look at it, it's like a rubber suit almost.
Yeah.
It's like a mini
No
Godzilla.
breathability.
No breathability whatsoever.
None.
It's a sauna.
Okay. Here's a funny thing. Harrison Ford was in this movie, but then got cut.
Oh, man.
Oh,
I was going to be like, where?
Yeah, I was thinking back. Where?
So at the time, Melissa Matheson asked her boyfriend at the time and future ex-husband Harrison Ford to be in a brief cameo. Basically, the cameo, and they recorded it. It's him. He was the principal, and basically Elliot came in there, and then they were having a conversation. You never saw Harrison Ford's face. This, I think, someone CGI. I think someone just CGI'd the 2 of these 2 together, but you never saw his face. And Spielberg was like, "Okay, Harrison Ford is too big. It will take away from the movie." So, he was like, "Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark." He's like, "No, it'll take it away from it." So they just cut it. So I just thought it was pretty funny. And Drew Barrymore asked Steven Spielberg to be her father. So
awesome.
because she was 7 years old, and apparently she had all kinds of issues at home life. It was in disarray. Steven Spielberg they actually took them trick-or-treating and did all kinds of other stuff.
Oh, that's sweet.
Spielberg said, "I cannot be your father. However, I can be your godfather." And so he agreed to be her godfather.
Hey, there you go.
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So there was plans for a sequel. E.T. 2 was called Nocturnal Fears. It was supposed to take place the summer after the first film. In it, Elliot and his friends are abducted by a mutated race related to the ETs, led by an evil alien named Kor-El. Doesn't that sound like Superman's enemy or something? Anyway, E.T. shows up, rescues the kids, and ultimately helps them get back to Earth. Basically, Spielberg said, "You know what? I don't need to make another movie because E.T. was so good. Why am I going to mess with the purity of the first film?" Thank you, Steven Spielberg. We need more directors to do this, to say, "You know what? I don't need to make more money off of this movie or this franchise. Let's just leave it alone. It's good how it is."
Yep.
I mean, good on that, but man, it is probably the longest staying ride at Universal, though. So he's still making bucks on it.
True.
I haven't got there yet. They did. There is a sequel. Here's an actual picture of the book. It's the Book of the Green Planet. All right. Basically, E.T. returns home, and his home is actually called Brodo Asogia.
Yeah.
And basically, he's demoted.
Right.
and sent into exile. He attempts to return to Earth by breaking all of his planet's laws. So I have not read it. I'd love to find it and actually read it and just to see. But yeah. And since John went ahead and threw that in there, Universal does it again. You know, we talked about Universal last week with Waterworld. Here we are again. 3 theme parks have had ET Adventures: Florida, Hollywood, and Japan. Florida is still operating this. It opened in 1990 and it is still in operation today.
Yes, it
The
is.
scenes
And
of the ride depict ET's home planet. Yeah.
it's
And
okay.
John Williams' score, he did the score for the ET Adventure. It's some of it is from the movie, and he did some of it for the ride itself specifically. So
Hey,
that's
that's great. I would say it
Yeah.
has not been updated in that 30 years almost. It's still a good ride. Like, you ride it the first time, you're like, yeah, this is great. Anytime after that, you're riding it because it's in the air conditioning.
exactly.
It's truth be told.
Well,
It's
that's
That's
right.
why
wonderful.
you're right. It's a small world and some of the other ones too.
Almost
Yes,
anybody
yes,
can
yes.
ride on it. It's great. It's ET. You make it to the end though, he can't really pronounce your name. It's not even close anymore. I don't know, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
It's still a part of the long line wait to get on it anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, with that, let's go ahead and go to our questions. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Switch them up.
Move them around a little bit because John is the one asking the questions. He's supposed to be in that far left corner. So we'll do that.
Scary.
John, you go at it with your questions.
Well, and guys, honestly, I was even going to ask more because I made it through the film partially, was starting to fall asleep, and then was going to send more. And honestly, I didn't think it needed too much more. There's a couple I'm going to throw in here, kind of off the hip that I thought of, that just, I don't know, they didn't require deep thought. I didn't think so. Anywho, we're going to start simple, coming off behind the scenes, and this movie became, at least in longevity, a blockbuster. And so thinking about that, it's geared towards kids, and oftentimes kids movies don't become super mega hits. I mean, I know they make money now, and they make
Well, speaking of,
sequels
wait a
upon
minute, wait a minute.
sequels
Before
upon
you
sequels.
go on with that, I kind of forgot something.
The
I
gross-
forgot this.
I was wondering. Good.
There we go.
I had it written in there, and I just I usually keep a blank slide in between the two, and I didn't see the next one, so I was like, oh darn. All right, yeah, this movie had a budget of $10.5 million. All right, and it made
There we
$359
go.
million in North America in 1982, and it was not released internationally at that time.
Holy cow.
Since then,
That's amazing.
it has been re-released 5 times and has grossed $797 million worldwide.
Yeah, I already saw it about 100 times.
So,
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
huge. That's a blockbuster.
yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it: $10.5 million to make it, and you've made 700 and
Almost $1 billion. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy.
Well, thinking about that, it is geared towards kids, and a lot of times, even though they make money, because parents just take their kids to go see stuff nowadays, all of that, I still feel like E.T. is one of the films that is just a clear-cut, good for all ages film. So, what do you think really sets it apart as an actual true blockbuster? And we'll start off the hip with Dave here.
Well, it's not. Well, let me first start by saying, we have a spreadsheet that we keep, that I update every week, and it's got who the main person is, who the support people are, who the main villain is, and then at the end of the year we kind of go back and look at that to say, oh yeah, okay, here's my top 5 of support characters, here's my top 5 villains, here's my top 5 main characters. This movie did not have a villain.
No.
At all. There was no villain. So, and I think that was enjoyable, especially for all ages, is you don't have to worry about someone getting scared of the villain. You know, even if you have young kids, you know, sometimes if you watch, what is it, 101 Dalmatians with Cruella Deville,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
I mean, she can be downright scary, you know,
Yeah.
on some things, you know, and there wasn't anyone like that. There wasn't any, no kidding, villain that you're just like, oh, I'm afraid of this, you know. It was just it almost reminded me of New Life, basically,
Mm.
you know, and how ET was just learning everything, you know,
Mhm.
and just seeing and then learning how to communicate and then learning the next step, you know, and then was like, oh, hey, I need to get home, you know,
Mhm.
finally able to communicate enough. And I just think it touched all aspects, all audiences, all ages.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Chad, what about you? What do you think set it apart as a blockbuster?
Just that. I mean, you gotta think it didn't have a villain in it, and to me, it touches where hey, it's something new. Like hey, you never seen interaction between an alien and a kid, especially somebody that. Now you gotta think the touch between the connection between alien and ET was something nobody's seen before. That
Mm-hmm.
he was thinking it, and that's what it draws you in, especially with the score and the music just constantly being right behind it, accompanying it. That's what made a very big movie for me. So I think it's just a part of the how the well written movie.
Fair enough. Shane, you got anything to add to that?
Well, Chad stole most of my answer. Um, but I think just to add to what both Chad and Dave said, I think just the overall story really just grabs at your heartstrings, and I just think it's just such an enduring tale, and I think it incorporates everything thing that you would want. It incorporates outer space. It incorporates the suspense with the government. It incorporates that connection between Elliot and ET. Magnificent score, magnificent music. I just think everything just aligned for this story, as Dave said, that only had a small budget to really just grab people and bring them in to where it just made it be a lovable story where everybody just loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my thought.
I'll say I'm in complete agreement. And now ultimately too, I think Spielberg definitely played a huge part of that in
Mhm.
his direction. I think he's obviously one of the best of at least modern history, if not all time. I would throw him up there with all time. However, he's also well known not just for his directing, but setting up a lot of creative camera techniques and certain things in his films. And I was just curious, did you notice any of those in ET? Did you notice anything special or different? And I'm just going to throw that one out there.
Oh, I got this one. Look at the Elliot with the ball. How do you know? How did he know to throw the ball in there? And especially that shot, the just throw it in there and this ball just comes rolling out.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about when when they had ET dressed up as a ghost, and then the camera angle where it was the camera, and then you could see the
Yeah.
two holes of what. So you
Mhm.
felt the camera, you know. And actually, I found a picture of it. I didn't put it on behind the scenes or anything. I should have. But I did see a picture of how they did that, and that's basically what they did was they took a sheet and put it over the camera and then filmed it that way, you know. And but it made you think that, oh, hey, we're really inside of ET and seeing what he's seeing.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Shane, any more to add? I'm just throwing it out
Um,
there because the other two did.
yeah. I just think that for 1982, you really got to think that it was like Dave said, it was ingenious to where you had these different camera angles to where some of them were like you were ET or like what Chad said to where you didn't know who was out there and the ball came rolling and different things. I just think that Spielberg was such a master of setting things up to where it drew you into the story.
For sure. I think one of the more subtle things I noticed on that front, speaking of slingshotting, boomeranging off of, whatever you want to say, is the fact that he used actually a lot of almost childlike perspective shots. I think that definitely sold it with maybe a
Mhm.
more childlike crowd too.
Yeah, he kept
He
it
shot a
kept
little
the
lower,
camera lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
which is definitely interesting because that doesn't always happen even in
Mm-mm.
kids' films. And then you'll notice he tends to do a lot of long takes where something's on screen for a good chunk of time before he swaps scenes.
True.
And I really think that helps ET a lot just in the storytelling. You get to see people and learn more about them without having to immediately try to jump and figure out someone else.
You
And
see
then
their
just his
reactions in real time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You see their
no, you're fine.
reactions in real time as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. And I mean that's more realistic to real life. We're not just constantly jumping from one thing to the next, even if it feels like it sometimes. You're in a moment for a little while. And
Mhm.
then, of course, his silhouettes. Man, Spielberg used those to the max in this film. And even shadows. I think part of the reason they could keep it to 10.5 million is the use of shadows and not having to put a whole lot of detail in ET. Because, I mean, a lot of times he's in dark spaces. The lighting set up so you get an idea of what he looks like, but he doesn't have to be full front and center, fully lit. And I mean, it played into the story well, but I think using the camera creatively probably helped on that front too. So I don't know. I just like to look at that sort of stuff. Well, moving on along. So we've talked about the government response to aliens in real life being a possible thing in general. How do you think this film geared up? I mean, we've talked about it in other films. How do you think ET stacks up, Shane?
Well, I think that when you talk about the entirety of it, I think it does fit. But I was surprised at how slow the government was to really get on it. You saw that they were observing, they were figuring out, of course, where the spaceship was, figuring out where ET was. But once they kind of pinpointed the neighborhood, I think they were on the hill and they noticed the neighborhood where he was when they were surveilling that. I would have thought they would have responded quicker. And
Mhm.
I think the whole thing with the NASA suit walking in, I was like, that's a little over
Yeah.
the top, but
Yeah.
That was for a
but
shock factor.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just for shock factor. But I think that the overall response, I could see something like that possibly happening in real life to where of course they quarantine everything off, they section it off, they have have the filtered air coming in, all of that. But I think that the response time was slow, and I think that's more of a plot hole I'll talk about later.
Mm.
But but but
Yeah.
that kind of stood out to me.
Absolutely. I mean, we sprinkle them in everywhere, but that's
Yes.
completely fair. Dave, what about you? How do you think the government did on this one?
I thought they broke a whole lot of laws by listening into eavesdropping on people
Mhm.
without their consent.
Yeah.
Well, to say that, that's
I mean, it seems right. It seems
time
like
time
based on the
wise,
time and
yes.
Yeah.
history,
I-
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is in my fixing and improving is also is if it's going to be military, don't need to look like a bunch of Bubba trucks just driving around with some guy walking around with keys on. It needs to be a general coming in there, giving orders saying this is what's going to happen. It'll be tanks, it'd be back then it wasn't Hummers, it would have been Jeeps or whatever. You would have seen a military presence.
Mhm.
It would have been cordoned off. And they would, like Shane said, they would not have taken that much time. It would have been
Oh
boom.
yeah.
Okay, once they saw it, or once they saw proof of it, boom, it's boots on the ground. Let's go.
Yeah. The whole neighborhood would have been shut down
Mm,
Yeah.
and found at that
Quarantine,
accurate.
point,
probably in
large
some
perimeter.
fashion of the word. Yeah. Chad, anything on top of that?
Yeah, I agree with both Shane and Dave. It would have been different if military was in there, but at the some of the stuff is a plot hole. When I saw that question, I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to say next to last because the last question I have isn't a part of these questions, and maybe I won't forget it by the time we make it through the last one that I had sent to you. Would you have hidden or fought for ET as hard as Elliot? That's kind of the last one I sent you guys, man. Because Elliot fought hard. I'm not gonna lie for a kid.
Well,
Yeah, for a kid who is what 12 years old, you know.
Oh yeah.
you got to think because he had a connection, some weird connection with
Yeah.
ET. Even in the scene when the ET was drinking all his beers, somehow Elliot was. He felt it. And you see Elliot in the Elliot was doing this, and all of a sudden you see ET do this. Like some
Yeah,
weird, very
yeah.
weird
So
connection.
I think and I'm just to piggyback on you, Chad, is that if there wasn't so much of a bond between the two of them, if it was like me and the alien, I don't know if I would fought as hard, but because
no.
like Chad was saying, is because there was that bond between the two of them where he did this and then ET would do the same thing,
Oh yeah.
I agree. I think that is one of the beauties of this film is that Spielberg does a great job of putting you in the perspective of both Elliot and ET, and you kind of get to experience what they're experiencing. So to be honest, after watching the movie and after seeing that connection and how they crafted everything with the camera angles and just the whole storyline, I think that the audience could get a sense of what it was actually like for Elliot and that connection with ET. So I would say, knowing that, I probably would have because of the perspective that the movie gave me with that connection that they had.
There you go.
Well,
Huh? Go ahead, Jeff.
so you got to think. It wasn't just Elliot fighting for him.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot's brother and even his friends, once they realized, oh, but they was really falling behind Elliot, not ET, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't know that I would have fought as hard as Elliot. I understand why Elliot fought as hard. I would have been a wimp probably if I found a weird creature / alien. I would have been a little wimp.
Yeah,
I
but
would
if
have
you
turned
had
that
the
into
connection
somebody
that they
something.
had, maybe.
I don't know. There is a maybe there, but I still don't know if I would have. All right, last question off the hip was not included in these. Do you guys see where this film influenced any other modern sci-fi pieces? And I say modern as in like even more modern than that, like the last 15, 20 years. Have you guys noticed its influence in any films, shows, the like? I say that because one of the main things I thought of anytime I see ET, especially with the nature of the bikes and all of that, and part of it's because it's a period piece, like it's in the 80s, and that's just mode of transportation for kids, like fair. But it really, a lot of it brings my attention back to Stranger Things now, and I
Yeah.
know they're completely set
Oh, there
apart.
you go.
But and again, part of it's just they're both set in the same time period, and I get that.
Well,
But the the bikes, the woods, even the D&D being thrown in there, there's little things like that.
well, you got to think the Stranger Things. It was set up in the '80s, and it was probably around that time where I think it was ET was on a movie theater. I think now I haven't rewatched Stranger Things to go check, but I mean you had Dungeons and Dragons. You had, I think, people dressed up similar to what this is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first season, like the lights. Little when you figure out you can communicate through the lights.
True as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The blinkage. Any other influences you guys think of? I just threw that one out there. I know, but
There are, but I can't think of them. Just be honest.
Yeah, can't off the top of my
Yeah.
head. I mean,
fair enough. Then that's it. That's what I have in terms of questions.
where's my mouse? My mouse is gone. There it is. All right, we are going to go ahead and do plot holes. All right, gentlemen, did any of you guys see any major plot holes or anything that you're just like, what? That just didn't make any sense?
I saw a few. The one I'm glaring of is the when the guy's getting dressed in a hazmat suit and putting keys inside of it. You wouldn't be wearing no sharp objects on your clothes. You're getting in there.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
If it's hazmat, and no, you'll be poking the. That was a big glaring plot hole. Other than the them do it over big shocking eye of the NASA suits,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be walking in that big old NASA suit. Those things as heavy as all get out. You wouldn't be
Mhm.
walking.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand if you wanted to be like, like a scuba, a self-breathing apparatus type, but not those big suits. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Anybody else? Shane, John, you guys see any?
The two that got me, one I mentioned earlier was just how the government handled the whole situation. I thought they were very very slow to react. One of the interesting thing Dave, you were mentioning about the Reese's Pieces is that who goes to an alien site where they think was, they find Reese's Pieces on the ground and start eating them? Who does that? Number one. Just saying. Just saying. Number one, you're eating the evidence, and two, you don't know exactly what they are. But anyway, that's one thing. That's one thing. The other thing was I would like to know more about the connection between Elliot and ET. I would like to know more about what specifically is causing that. I know that it's some form of telepathy, but at the same point, it's like what is the connection there? I don't think they said enough about it. I think you just kind of got it as it went along, and I would have liked that explained a little more.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I would too on that one. My biggie is just the general science. A lot of the times it seems like this movie really focused on just getting ET home and didn't really focus on a lot of like I guess the real technical aspects. And just like ET with technology, sometimes it seems like he's real on it, sometimes he's not. Like he can take all these things and kind of MacGyver it into a communication device that goes home. But like he's an alien from space in a spaceship. Why didn't they just have a homing beacon? Like something like
Yeah.
that. Now maybe it broke in the crash and we can get into stuff like that, but that's not really what the movie suggests. It's just like, no, he had to do this to build this to talk back to home. And it's
Mhm.
like, I
Well,
don't know.
yeah.
There's just inconsistencies
Not
there.
necessarily. Here goes one of my plot holes is that okay, he made the bikes fly, right?
Yeah.
Spaceships start to take off. He could have just made himself fly and land in the ship and be done with it. No movie.
Fair point.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And obviously Gertie is, that was
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore. Thank you. I'm sure her mom has seen her stand next to her two brothers
Mm-hmm.
and would notice a sizable difference between the
They in the ghost.
True.
even in the
True.
ghost. When you look at ET, he was a good like 2 feet shorter than her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mom should have noticed that immediately. Like, what's going on?
And a good bit wider too.
You gotta think
Yeah.
Gertie's trying to show mom like, hey mom, I want to show you something. And
Well, and then also, how did Gertie get there? Then, did the brother hide her some way? Or I got lost on that because did mom bring the brother Gertie and Elliot to somewhere to go trick or treat, or did they just walk out the house? I don't remember that.
they
part.
walked out of the house, but where was Gertie at?
Yeah, exactly.
She wasn't in the under the sheet. It was ET, but
Dude, he should have just taken the sheet off and just let him be his normal self. That would have been a great
True.
costume.
That would have been a great costume.
But and then the biggest one to me is ET dies. And immediately everyone in that room that was working on him take off their masks and all their hazmat stuff.
True.
Immediately it's like he just died. There's probably something there that caused him to die. Now you've just exposed yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like no.
And then you had the guy with the I've been waiting for them to come back.
Yeah, I mean, no, he said he's been waiting for something like this, his whole life.
Since he was
right?
10 years old.
Yeah. Oh man, hold on. I'm looking for my little thing here. Keep talking, somebody.
Yeah, that was strange with the. Oh, it says 10.
Oh, here it is.
Nice.
It's like, okay, yeah, I've been waiting for this all my life. No, you haven't.
No.
All right, let's go ahead and rate this thing. John, you picked this movie. We're going to let you rate this first.
Oh boy, pressure. Man, I will say, at least in comparison, I definitely enjoy this movie a lot, and over my life, I have enjoyed this movie a lot. So there's a little bit of a bias. I'm not going to lie. Ultimately, though, it's a kids movie turned blockbuster. I mean, we saw the numbers and what it grossed. It still stands the test of time even now. It's a great film to watch with my kids. The ride is fun, although albeit a little odd still. I have no qualms with it. I can watch it over and over. Sure, the science doesn't always line up, but the point of the movie was not the science. It's fun. It's childhood. It's nostalgia. It's a straight 5 for me.
Whoa.
All right. All right.
Chad, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good blockbuster movie. Good movie to rewatch as from a kid down into and watch it with your kids. I still say, I mean, yeah, it could be a 5, but I'll say at least a 4.5. Just to, I'm gonna play it safe on this.
I say you're leaving room, Chad. That's wise.
Okay, Shane.
So I was saying this offline. I first watched this movie when I was a kid and really didn't like it, really didn't appreciate it. Watched it again for this podcast and I was so wrong. It is such a good movie. It's such a good movie. It's a great story. It's got as we said earlier, it pulls on your heartstrings. It's just an amazing score. Number one, the music is phenomenal. I just think they did a great job with it. I don't know if I can go with a 5, but I would say this one is a strong 4.5.
Fair.
Well, for me, there
Well,
really
Yeah,
wasn't.
I see this spreadsheet, Dave. I've seen it. I've seen it teeter totter.
I keep changing it. I keep going back and forth. Part of me is like, I was really irked. Shane texted me, especially after he watched it. He was like, "Can you believe what they did on that bus?" Because I'm a bus driver, and I was like, "No, not on my bus." I was kind of irked about that. However, the score was phenomenal. The story was good. These plot holes we're picking up are minuscule, really. It's a 5 all day long for me. It's a 5. It's got to be, It's one I've seen many times. I will watch it again. Wait till my grandson's old enough, and we'll watch it together.
Yeah, buddy.
So, yeah. Okay. I don't think we need to fix anything on this movie because we all agreed it was really good. But is there anything we can improve on? Well, hey, I'll go ahead and start. I've already said it earlier. One of my big things was I think it needed to have a military presence instead of the guy with the keys. It just didn't make any sense to me. That should have been military. And just, I also think that BMX was huge. That's bicycle motocross. If those of you out there that are not as old as I am, it was huge in the early 80s. I used to race my bicycles myself. I think it was a huge missed opportunity for all the bicycle manufacturers to have each of those kids have different bikes, different manufacturers. Could have been have their they could have had a Vans T-shirt on. I could have had just the kind of bicycle they like to ride. I was a Redline guy, so I had Redline T-shirts and hats and Vans shoes. My buddy David, he was Diamondback. That's all he had. My friend Lance, he had Hutches. Our other friend, she had a Mongoose. I mean, we had all these different, and I just think it was, to me, that could have been just something, especially in the era it was in. BMX was so huge. I think that should have been a part of the movie, minuscule part, but it's part of the movie anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else.
Yeah, it'd be neat to see that because a lot of your BMS stuff was started over in California, especially with Vans and all that.
Yeah,
It'd be
Vans
nice.
started out as a skateboard.
Yeah,
and BMX picked it up because the tread on the shoes was perfect for the Shimano pedals that we used to use.
So yeah, I agree with Dave. It should at least go along with the area what's going on there. Other than that, just make it more. I would make it even longer, just not longer, but just more scenes with ET in the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my big thing with it, that if I were to improve anything, I think I would add maybe one opening scene where ET's leaving the homeworld, something about his homeworld, just to show a glimpse of that, just to catch some background story to it. And then, of course, I mean, we fix the science a little bit, and you're set up on that too. But I would have enjoyed seeing part of ET's homeworld, maybe him leaving for a journey, just some explanation for him to have been dropped or left or whatever.
Oh, why were they here?
Well, they want you to go to Universal.
Yeah, sure, because the ride definitely existed first.
No, I told you the ride started in 1990, so no, it didn't.
Yeah, so I think I would have liked to have seen that in the film. Outside of that, it's pretty set for me.
Yeah,
Shane?
I agree. I don't think there was really anything to fix, quote unquote. I think it was all done very well. I think the only two things that I would really improve on is just go into a little bit more about ET's healing powers, and also about just the connection between he and Elliot. I think if they just talked about that a little bit more, kind of explain that maybe in some way, I think that would have just made it better. But again, I don't think there was necessarily a fix, quote unquote. I think it was just very well done.
Yeah. I mean, and I just thought about this now is, maybe fix some of you could tell that some of the things were green screened, especially with modern technology, it would have looked better. I still like the model making and the real life stuff. Although I did read that the iconic thing that you see of ET with the bicycle going across the moon and all that was all done with like stick figures.
Okay.
It was just like something they were just like, okay, just stick it up there. All right, let's go with it. And then it was a stop motion. It was click and then move it, click, move it, click, 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 and then boom, it was done. There was no real bicycle actually moving or anything. So, but yeah, so I mean, just some of those like the video stuff that to fix that, like when they are jumping, next to the cars and stuff. And I did read that Spielberg actually came back and said, "I'm sorry," because at one point they took the guns out of the movie, that the FBI agents or the cops didn't have guns, and then they were like, "That looks stupid." That they're just standing there, no, okay, needs, because it was, there was a big push, I guess, at some point.
Yeah.
Kind of like 2025, hey, we don't need to have guns, but we won't go there.
One thing too, just John had mentioned this earlier about the child perspective and how it was filmed and everything. Did y'all notice that whenever the government agents were there, for a lot of them, it did not show their faces. It just showed either silhouettes, or it just showed them from a child perspective. And if you think about it, most of the time a kid would not necessarily recognize who the people are. It's just these people that are coming in. So I thought that was a cool thing too.
Here's another thing: is like why was ET there in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got that they were there looking at the plants and stuff because
Yeah.
I noticed they really, and especially when you notice, like John was saying about the camera view, I never noticed it before, but you kept seeing ET looking up at those huge pines,
Mhm.
True.
and that was something that he tried digging up the first time, which I've never seen this. I've seen this movie probably 20 times, and I never
Seen it.
noticed it before that he was actually digging up and trying to take a baby pine and
Mhm.
then looking up and seeing how big those great pines were,
Mhm.
and I don't know. To me, I was just like,
Yeah.
I didn't
was it
notice that before.
if it was exploration or just curiosity of what the plants were? Even if you
Mhm.
look at the flower that Gertie gave ET, it started when it started dying. All of a sudden, Elliot saw it coming back to life. Like, oh, he's alive.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Start to Enterprise.
Please contact us. Tell us if you agree with our ratings or how you would fix or improve this movie, or if there's a movie that you would like us to review. The easiest way to do that is if you're watching us on YouTube is to comment below. For those of you that are audio only listeners, you can reach us on either X or Facebook at TheseSciFiGuys. Or you could email us TheseSciFiGuys at gmail.com.
Well, we don't do this this part of the show every week, but we are going to do other sci-fi stuff. I know a few weeks ago I talked about the X-Files, and every time I hear that sound, it just makes me think of the X-Files.
Oh, it is.
I mean, I was like, that's so close to X-Files. I was like, man, that's cool. So this week was John. John picked the movie and has some things he wants to share. John.
See, I chose something the first time just because it's what made us think of the segment, but this time I'm going tried and true, something I've been able to kind of rewatch with the kids, and that's a classic sci-fi show, Doctor Who. It survived Britain for a very long time. Right now, me and the family are on the 10th Doctor. I have not seen a whole lot of the classic Doctors. I know some of the quote-unquote lore and all that, but yeah. The ninth Doctor, the one before Tenet, he got the show back. He got it running. We appreciate him for that, but it really picked up with Tenet, and then ran real hard with him and Matt Smith. And so that would just be my other sci-fi stuff. I love the show. This timey-wimey, weird traveling Doctor Who
Sonic
we don't know.
screwdriver thingy.
Yeah,
Who?
and so
Who?
it's just a real cool show. It takes you through a lot of different sci-fi thoughts, because every episode's basically in a different world, and just the creativity behind that, the amount of time it takes to think of those worlds, it kind of slows down as you get into newer Doctors. I mean, you run out of ideas eventually, but man, it's just a real solid show, and it's survived for a reason.
Mhm.
I can honestly say I've never seen any Doctor Who.
me neither.
Just know nothing.
I,
I know about a sonic screwdriver. That's all
Yeah.
I've ever, and then of course the TARDIS.
Yeah.
That's my knowledge of Doctor Who, and I know there was a ton of Doctor. I asked John. I said, "Which Doctor?" Because he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do Doctor Who." I was like, "Okay, which one?" Because I know
It
there's a
makes
bunch.
a difference because some of them are not as good.
like
Go ahead,
I,
Chad.
ne- I never watched Doctor Who. I mean, I know who. I know, don't get me wrong. I know who what the show is and what it's about, but I never sat there and watched it. It's almost
Well,
seen them.
it just depends. Also, when you probably have priorities elsewhere. Like for me, like I'm a big Space 1999 fan. That was a show that was back then in the 70s. That was also a BBC show. But it had American actors, or Martin Landau. People
Another
like that. So.
Stargate. It's,
Yeah, well, Stargate was filmed in all the
Yeah.
Stargate stuff was filmed in Canada. Most of your sci-fi stuff is because the weather in Canada is better. Supposedly, A lot of stuff now is being filmed right here in Georgia. You know,
Mhm.
there is a lot of stuff. If you'll notice at the end of movies, you'll see that big Georgia.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, you'll see a big
Hollywood
Georgia peach.
2.0.
Yep.
Yeah, it really has. Georgia has become a big state when it comes to where they're filming at and everything.
Mhm.
Wife wants to go to the movies tomorrow, so she's going to go see one thing, and I'm going to go see the new Captain America tomorrow. So,
Yeah, you have to let us know how it is.
I actually saw that today.
and you didn't call
Yeah.
us. Thank you very much.
Well, I was with Julie. Julie wanted to go see it too.
Oh, okay. Well,
you know.
it's his wife. He has to take care. Gotta, happy wife, happy life.
You're
we know how
exactly
it
right.
is. Well, until next time.
Crash and burn. These Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by The Sci-Fi Guy Productions. Super Epic is music courtesy of Alexander Nakarita and is found on Creator.
Oh, we're gonna stop that. Stop it. Nope, I gotta do that because we didn't say what we're watching next week. I had to stop the video. So next time is one that Shane picked out for us. Moonfall. Shane, what's the reason behind this? Why'd you pick this movie? Do you know, or just like you're like, hey, it's a cool movie, I want to see it again?
So I chose this movie, and mostly because I'm a big fan of disaster movies, things like that, where it's kind of the world ending sort of movies. So this was one that I picked. It is not what it seems, is what I'll say. So
I have seen it.
we will get
before,
into
so-
that.
but we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Now, until next time.
Crash and burn. These Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by The Sci-Fi Guy Productions. Super Epic is music courtesy of Alexander Nakarita and is found on creatorrecords.com. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow us on X at The Sci-Fi Guys. For our audio-only listeners, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment to let us know how we're doing.